In this video, I'm sharing how to make citrus garland and a beautiful citrus wreath. These are so easy to make and they add a festive touch to lots of different occasions. The first thing you need is some citrus. You can use different kinds of citrus like lemons, oranges, and grapefruit. My personal favorites to use are oranges and grapefruit because they typically provide the biggest fruit slices. Here in our family's garden, there are a few abundant citrus trees. They have this stunning grapefruit tree which is decades old, and this gorgeous tangerine tree which is bursting with fruit, and this Meyer lemon tree which smells so fragrant and sweet. We were able to harvest an abundance of fruit, and I decided to turn some of it into garland. Of course, you can also use fresh citrus to make delicious recipes like candied tangerines, simple syrup, mocktails, sorbet, and more. I made an entire video about the many different ways I love to use citrus, which is linked on the screen and in the description box. Now I'll show you how to make citrus garland. For my garland today, I'm using grapefruit. I started by washing the fruit and removing any stems or leaves. The next step is to remove the ends from the fruit and start cutting even slices. A tip I have is to make your slices slightly thicker or wider than you would get if you were to use a standard mandolin slicer. This is because thicker slices, in my experience, tend to hold up longer than thinner ones, and we want our garland to last. After I cut my slices, I'm removing any visible seeds from each slice. I highly recommend using seedless fruit if you have it, because you can skip this step if you do. If you're purchasing your citrus, sometimes you can find seedless oranges at the market, which will save you some time. I'll speed this up while I remove the rest of the seeds. It's that time of year when I'm blasting Christmas music, which makes this process so much more enjoyable and less tedious. If you're watching this and it's not during the holiday season, do you ever listen to Christmas music during other times of the year? Let me know in the comments below. After all of the citrus I'll be using has been sliced, the next step is to transfer the slices to baking sheets that are lined with parchment paper. There are several popular methods you can use to dry out your fruit slices so they last a long time. These methods are oven drying, air drying, or dehydrating. I've had great success oven drying, and I would recommend this method for the convenience. It's easy and accessible to anyone that has an oven. I'm baking some lemon slices for another project, which I might show you step by step in another video. Now I'm adding the grapefruit slices I'll be using to make my citrus garland and wreath. These are such a pretty color. They're naturally light pink inside, and wait until you see what color they become after they're dried in the oven. I think this grapefruit variety is Oro Blanco, but I'm not positive. I'm adding these in a single layer to the parchment paper on my baking tray. I then heated my oven to 175 degrees and dried the grapefruit slices for about 4 hours, flipping them over halfway through at the 2-hour mark. Each oven is different, and the first time you oven dry citrus, I recommend checking in on these every hour or so. If you're drying thicker slices like I am, you'll need to keep them in the oven longer. Here are what my beautiful dried grapefruit slices look like. Now it's time to make some garland. I'm using this clear fishing line that I love because it's super strong and it's transparent, which allows the slices to stand out and shine on their own. I'll link this in the description box. I'm attaching my fishing line to one of my sewing needles so I can easily weave it through the dried grapefruit slices quickly. I'm starting by taking my needle with the fishing line attached and gently weaving it first through the back side of my grapefruit slice and then through the front side so that the slice is securely attached to my fishing line thread. Now I'm moving the secured grapefruit slice to near the end of my thread so that I can continue this process to make my garland. I'm adding another slice and repeating the process. You can choose to add other fun items to your garland for some variety. For the holidays, sometimes I like to add cinnamon sticks, cloves, sprigs of rosemary, or pine cones. Garland is completely customizable, and it's always fun to see what different people come up with. I'm going to follow the process until I've made a few strands of garland, which I'll show you in just a minute here. And then I'll also show you a super easy DIY, which is how you can use citrus garland to make a beautiful and classic citrus wreath. Here is my first strand of citrus garland. I tied the end of my garland by looping the fishing line around my last piece of citrus and tying a quick knot. I made more garland strands, and here is what they look like when you hang them all together. I love how this garland has a translucent effect, which makes it glow in the sunlight. Here's a close-up of all of my garland strands. I'll use some of these for tablescapes, some for citrus wreaths, and I'll also add a few to my Christmas tree this year. I wish we had smell-o-vision. This garland has such an invigorating, inviting, and fresh citrus scent. Now it's time to turn some of my garland into a citrus wreath. This is a wire wreath frame that I got from Amazon, and I'll add the link to the description box. I moved inside to show you this part, and my garland looks a lot more of a deep red or burgundy color here. It might be my camera or just the lighting, but it looks a lot brighter in person. To make my wreath, I'm starting by laying out one strand of citrus garland around the wire frame. I just want to get a rough idea of how it fits, see if there's any overlap, and how it looks before I secure it. I'll be using 2 strands of garland, and so I want to position this first strand so that it covers the interior circle of the wire frame completely. This will give us a great base before we add one more strand of garland. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect, but it should give you an idea if the length and size of your garland works for the frame. If not, you can add additional dried citrus slices to your garland or remove some if you have too many. The next step is to secure the garland to the frame. I like to start with 4 main ties on the top, bottom, left, and right side of the frame. Because I don't want any of the ties to show or be obvious, I'm using my transparent fishing line again. To secure the garland, first I'm flipping over my wire wreath frame and then arranging the garland under the frame. I find this to be the easiest way to secure the garland, and I'll show you exactly what I do. After the garland has been arranged just how I like it, I'm taking my needle with the clear fishing line attached and weaving it through one of the citrus slices on the left-hand side. I'm going to tie a tight knot here, and you can also do a double knot just to make sure it's securely attached. Now I'm cutting the excess fishing line off. And I'm repeating this process in the 3 other places I mentioned on the wreath frame. Now let's flip over our wreath and see how it looks. You can see that the garland is secure in the places it's been tied, but we do need to secure it further, which we can do by adding and then tying another strand of garland to the frame. For the second garland strand, first I'm laying it out to make sure it fully covers the exterior circle of the wire frame. This just gives our finished wreath a clean look. To secure this garland, instead of weaving it through the individual slices, I'm looping it around the back of the wreath and then tying it on the front of the wreath under the garland slices. This helps hide the fishing line, but I've noticed that even if it shows, it's very hard to see due to the transparency. I'll finish tying this and then repeat this process a few more times around the second garland strand until everything is secure and I can lift up the wreath and the garland all stays in place. And the final step I like to do is add a big, beautiful bow to the top of my wreath. I love using this wired ribbon because it's easy to tie and it holds its shape nicely. I'll also link this in the description box. To tie my bow, I'm first looping the ribbon around the top of my wreath and then tying a fairly tight knot. I want this to be secure, but I don't double knot this. And now I'm pulling the ribbon through and reshaping it as needed. The great thing about this ribbon is that it's able to be adjusted and molded exactly how I want it thanks to the wire. I usually spend a little bit of time fluffing the bow part of my ribbon just to make sure it's perfect. I love how this turned out, and now let's take it outside for the final look. Here is my beautiful wreath in the sunshine. Right now, I'm loving having the ribbon ends of my bow be extra long, but you can always cut them shorter if that's more your style. Now I'm off to add this wreath to my holiday decor collection. That's all for now, but if you're looking for fun ways to use lemons, tangerine, grapefruit, and other citrus, I invite you to subscribe and check out this video where I show you 5 of my favorite ways to use an abundant fruit harvest. happy holidays, and I'll see you in my next video.